foremost, thank you for the invite down here. I feel honored. Wasn't part of the presentation, but because of the Veterans Day and the different veterans being introduced, I'd like to go over an incident that happened with me at Home Depot on Veterans Day. Being there, and I was buying a whatever. And I got up to the counter, a young lady there. She says, "Are you a vet or do you have a military ID?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And I pulled out my billfold, and I was having trouble getting it out, my billfold. And she was rather adamant. She said, "Sir, we need to see a military ID." And I said, "Well, that's funny. The guy that was shooting at me didn't ask for an ID." She reached over and touched my hand, and a tear in her eye, and she said, "Sir, I don't need to see an ID." Yeah, so, I'm going to go over a deal with you that happened many years ago. We all learn from children, right? I learned this from a 6-year-old nephew. I'm not so much interested in you knowing if I'm a good speaker or not. I'm interested in you being a good audience. We went to his house, and his mother was doing the laundry. And Chad come running in, 6 years old, and he says, "Mom, Mom, 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 there's something I want to tell you, something I want to tell you." She said, "Chad, I'm busy. What is it?" And he's jumping up and down. He says, "Mom, Mom, this is really important. I want you to hear this." And she says, "Chad, I'm busy." And he says, "Mom, listen to me with your eyes." The mouths of babes. So, a little bit about myself qualifying. I was raised on a farm. Got a little letter from the government. Vietnam was going on. Went over and did that number. Came back. All I wanted to do in life was race cars. I don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but that's all I wanted to do. And I did. I didn't eat a decent meal for 20 years. My family disowned me, but I raced cars. When you're 20-some years old, you aren't going to see 50, so what's the difference, right? Well, all of a sudden I did make it to 50. What am I going to do for a living? I knew two things for sure in life. One, I wasn't going to be a 60-year-old race car driver. I've seen them, it doesn't work. Number two, I knew I could never ever work for anybody. I'd either tear up so much stuff or make them mad. All I'd do is fire me anyway. So what am I going to do for a living? Well, my shop was nothing but the race car. I built my own engines, I built my own chassis. That was the way we did it. And by the way, I'm 71 years old, so this was a long time ago. The racing in that era, our parts came from the junkyard. They wasn't prefabricated like they are today. So I invented a plastic engine for mock-up and display. And it later picked up on auto parts stores, trade schools started buying them, and so on. I had the company for 23 years, and as of this spring, there was more engines that need to be built, and at 70-some years old, I wasn't going to do it. I also run the FBO up at Leavenworth, Kansas. I've flown for 30 years. I've kept my airplane up there for 30 years. But in the last 8 years, I've been running the FBO for the city of Leavenworth up there. On the matter of the Link trainer, I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the history of it, so it'll help answer some of the questions, how I came about it, how this all came to be. Okay. Business got me involved in flying. I had to be in Springfield, Missouri, Columbia, Missouri, Miami, Oklahoma, all the same day. Signed some contracts, pick up some checks, so on. Driving was out of the question. I chartered a plane. Pilot let me sit up front. Let me run the radios a little bit, fly a little bit. We left Leavenworth at 9 o'clock in the morning, and at 5 o'clock I was home watching the world news. No falling asleep driving, no motel bill. This is great. Always wanted to fly. So after that happened a couple times, I started in flying. I soloed on my 40th birthday. I had about 3 hours in a 150, just where I've been my whole life. And I answered an ad in the newspaper of this airplane called a Mooney down in Sedalia, Missouri. I went down there to look at it, just to look, right? Anybody been there? Just to look. And I told this old fella that I only had 3 hours and 150, but I was interested in flying and so on. Well, I learned later, not mention any names or anything, but he's one of the world's worst pilots. Took me for a ride in. I probably did everything wrong. Made a deal with him. He flied up to Kansas City. I let an AMP look at it by the name of Van Warmer. Anybody know him? Okay. Van okayed it, whatever. I bought the plane. And so I learned how to fly in the Mini. The person that I bought it from, I went back down to Sedalia to, of course, get the paperwork and so on. And he had this in his garage, this big link trainer. I have no idea what that was, whatever, but I remember it, okay. 20 years later, almost to the day, I know what a link trainer is, I ran into the old boy. I said, what did you ever do with that old link trainer? He said, I've had it for over 40 years. I've never done a thing with it. I ought to just sell it. I basically just bought it over the phone. He had since moved over on Liberty, and I went over to get it, pick it up. I didn't even know that the desk came with it, the training desk, and it was all there, all. And in the, what I considered gold, in the desk was the maintenance manual and instruction manual. The schematics, notes in there, how it worked, so on. This was actually the Bible of what got this thing going on that. I had an individual working for me at the time who was one of these gurus in life. He could basically build anything, fix anything. His expertise was way, way far beyond mine. So he was 80% instrumental in getting this thing going. Even though that I did learn a lot, and I didn't fall off any turnip truck, I could learn. But this guy, there was little things he did on the link trainer that I don't think no one else could do, but we got it going. Okay. What had happened, does anybody remember Ed Duckworth? Good. Ed had learned of it and brought 5 people over from the FAA to fly it. They were so impressed with it, they said, we want to get a hold of our bosses in Atlanta who write regulations on simulators, which they did. In the interim time, AOPA came out with about a 10-page article on the link trainer and myself. From this article, I had people come in, basically from all over the United States and some foreign countries, to fly this thing for nostalgia reasons or whatever. From this article, I had some people call in and they say, my husband had a link trainer, had it for years. He's passed away, it's sitting in a hangar. What would you give us for it? We really need to get it out of our way. I went to Maine to get one. I went to New York to get one, and I went to Pennsylvania to get one. Didn't know exactly. My wife says, what are you going to do with them? I said, I don't know what I want to do with them, and I don't know what I don't want to do with them. The only thing that I know is from the interest in it, somewhere down the road, there's going to be a reason for it. It's some of those thoughts that we men have, that it's there, but what are you doing? Okay. At that time, I really honestly didn't know. Today I do. We had some of the different people coming through there and asking questions and so on. And by the way, women were instructors. You know why? Men were off to war. And a lot of these old pilots that came in, and they were talking about experiences that they had during the war and flying the link trainer. As we've all heard, they're 18, 19, 20 years old. Do you know that 30% of them lied about their age? Yeah. Anybody heard of the USO? Anybody know how that got started? I do. What happened in England over there, and that gentleman probably remembers back there, the Army Air Corps at that time got to noticing that people on leave and passes weren't going anywhere. They were sitting around the barracks playing cards and so on. So the Army did a study, and they found out that 80% of these young men had never been 10 to 20 miles away from the house they were born in. They didn't know how to go out. So they come up with hangar dances. And that's how the USO got started. It was a tremendous success, and is today. There's reenactments of the USO all over the country. And moving on with the Link Trainer. Got it going, had people coming in, start flying it. The FAA from Atlanta, Georgia, a guy by the name of Ed Nash, called me, I'm going to say about every other day for about a month. He said that he not only used to fly them, but he used to work on them. He said people need to fly that Link Trainer. It's one of the few trainers ever built, even today, that can teach spin recovery. It'll turn 360 seconds, or 360 degrees in about 7 seconds. Yeah. And had a lady pilot from Des Moines, her husband came down, and she made a comment. You know, we all learn from one another. And she said, I want to experience vertigo in the simulator, not in the airplane. Good point. And when you get in that, vertigo will come on. I've only known maybe a couple pilots where it didn't. In fact, one instructor pilot, he didn't have that hood closed but about 10 seconds. He opened it back up and says, whoa, I got to get used to this. Yeah. Now, how many in here are pilots? Great, okay. We all know what vertigo is. Has anybody in here experienced disorientation?
Sure.
Okay, the rest of you are liars. What happens in this Link Trainer is, or even in flying, we've been told about the equilibrium in our ears, the water in our ears and so on. What the airplane out there is a machine, and it's going to keep you alive if you know how to read the instruments. I don't care if you've got 4 hours or 40,000 hours, you can experience that disorientation in seconds. Anybody ever flying, dropped your glasses, a pen on the floor, whatever, reached down to pick it up and lift it back up, and where'd the world go? Yeah. It wasn't the airplane, it was you. That water in your ears is just telling you different than what those instruments are telling you. Very quickly. And a person that recognizes that out there is going to stay alive. This Link Trainer, I didn't know a whole lot about it, but learning and whatever. About, my goodness, for 10 years ago, I'm not sure what year it was, but took it down to the air show in Kansas City and set it up. Kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit, but Ed Link, when he first started building these for money, by the way, his dad, the family, Link family, built pipe organs for churches. And what makes this thing run, there's a big vacuum cleaner. They call it a turbine. It feeds air into this, and this is what turns it. This pulley over here, vacuum coming in. Pipe organ in a church works the same way. Okay. So you're welcome to come over and look at it there. His dad, who owned the company, because he was learning how to fly, which was taboo, fired him. But a foreman in the plant knew this kid was a genius and made him hire him back. For money, and what he was trying to do was offset the cost of flying, because flying was tremendously expensive. So he built this simulator to help offset the cost of flying. For money, he sold them to amusement parks clear across the country. Okay. In 1935, the government hired civilians to haul the mail. In bad weather, they were crashing airplanes and killing pilots. The government took it away from the private civilian and turned it over to the Army Air Corps to fly the mail. It only lasted 75 days. In bad weather, they were crashing airplanes and killing pilots. Didn't make any difference if it was military or civilian. Bad weather is bad weather. Instrument flying is instrument flying. The Army had heard about this blue canoe, or blue box, as it was dubbed, that would help pilots fly in bad weather. They set a meeting up with Ed Link in New Jersey. Now, they built these in Binghamton, New York. The day happened to be an instrument day. He was, by the way, all this information is on the internet. He's supposed to be there at 10 o'clock, he wasn't. They heard a noise up in the clouds at 10 o'clock, he landed. The Army said, how did you fly a plane on a day like today? He said, because of my Link trainer. The Army bought 6 of them that day. During the course of the war, there were 10,000 built. Japan bought 7. Russia bought 4. I can't remember the numbers. Every country in the world bought at least 1. They were designated for the Army Air Corps, the Navy, and British. They did different frequencies than what they had over here, but I won't go into that right now. Well, on this air show down there, I took the Link trainer down to Kansas City, set it all up, and the city of Kansas City came to me and said they wouldn't allow to let anybody fly it. Why? They still had it on their books records as an amusement ride, and because of liability. This is one of the reasons I'll probably never be political or want to in office, so I'm not politically correct. So I said, well, that's funny. Kennedy and Carnahan should have had a few more amusement rides. This thing isn't here to hurt you. It's here to help you. There's a lot of young men out there that were young men at that time who learned how to fly in this Link trainer and Warriors. They hated it. They hated it, but they loved it. Sir, did you ever fly a Link trainer?
Yeah.
I bet you did. I'm interested in yours. Sir?
Number 1 on the hate list.
See, that backs up what I'm saying. They hate it, but they also knew it was going to keep you alive too.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, in Hawaii, I was over there and talking to some people, historians, and there was a fleet of P-51s that it took off. I think there was 120, 130 took off. Got up into the clouds, 40 of them came back. Yeah.
I like Navy.
Could have been. Anyway, basically what the men learned out there, even though they hated that thing, they knew that it was probably going to keep them alive. What was your time in a P-50? What did you come up from on a P-50? What did you fly before P-51?
Before?
Yeah.
P-39.
P-39. When you started flying the P-51, how many hours was it before you went into combat?
60.
Yeah, there wasn't much time on that. I've heard that the average on it was 25, but I'm not sure on that. It wasn't much
I was
time.
in town most of the time.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for the pilots who flew that era. A lot of them came through, in fact, I want to pass this around. They've left me some different photos, the personal photos that we're taking. And here's one that was in a B-17, and the crew survived, and the person taking this picture survived, and I actually got to meet them, and he left me this picture. I want to pass it around. Also, I said women were instructors. Had a lady come in all the way from California. She was 18 years old, was a Link trainer instructor. We called the town newspapers, and they come down, did an article on her, and so on. She was there for the whole day. A tremendous, tremendous, knowledgeable lady, and she must have been a real character. She's a redhead. And at the end of the day, she flew the Link trainer, told us a lot about it, And as she was leaving, I was trying to think of any more questions to ask her or whatever. So I said, okay, you're 19 years old. There's a war going on. You're an instructor on a link trainer. What's one of the most memorable things that you can remember about it? She kind of rubbed her chin for a minute. She said, all the cute guys. 85 years old. And she started remembering the cute guys. Okay. So, a lot of the people that come in to fly the link, they bring their kids with them. 6 years old, 16 years old, doesn't make any difference in kids there. Kids bored, or whatever. Dad flies the plane. Get done, they said, Dad, will he let me fly it? All right. One of the instruction booklets that was in the plane here was for the instructor, okay? Because he's teaching these kids. There's a question and answer thing in here that the Army Air Corps told them that they will be asked by these students. One of the questions was that this flies a lot like the real airplane, but yet it's different. How come? The answer, the Army Air Corps' answer is, you're used to flying VFR. Now you're flying IFR. Two different types of flying. Another question. They said, there's no trim on the link trainer. We can't trim it out. We have to fly it. No matter what you program into it, by the way, we can kill some instruments, put in turbulence and so on. But they said we have to fly the plane without trim. How come? The answer in the booklet, there's a war going on. Maybe your instrument shot up. Maybe you don't have that. How many times you complained about trim when you turned on autopilot? Yeah. What really amazed me on this here is this was the early 40s. Those answers are still true today. So it also said in here for instruction, even though there's like 13 to 15 instruments in the link trainer, they said, we don't care how many hours you have, but here's how you fly the link trainer. Airspeed, altitude, artificial horizon, turn bank. All the rest of them, forget about. Just fly those. Okay. So we put the kid up in there, and say 6 years old. And anybody want to guess? They did better than the dad did. You know why? Video games. What is instrument flying? It's a video game. Yeah. Now today I have the answer of what I'm going to do with 4 link trainers. I began noticing a pattern. It wasn't 1. It wasn't 6. It was all of them. All these kids. What's going on here? This pattern in there. So I run the airport up at Leavenworth, Kansas, and I don't know all the answers about aviation, but I know some of them. And one of the things is, with 9/11 and the security thing that we've had around these airports, the day of the young person hanging around the airport wanting to learn how to fly is over. They can't get near the airport. Pump gas, wash airplanes, whatever. Plus they're into computers and so on. So what I do is I go to Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Civil Air Patrol, high school groups, and we get kids to come down there, anywhere from 6 years old to 16 years old, to introduce them into the training. And guess what? They get in there, they can feel the movement of that thing, they can see these instruments, and when they get out of that thing, say, I try to take groups of 10, 12, okay. One out of the bunch is pulling at his dad's shirt sleeves or whatever. I want to do that. That's what we're after on the link trainer thing. I bought some things on eBay every now and then. I'll see one on there. Here's a badge that the ladies were awarded for being a link instructor. I was able to find some things on eBay and went ahead and bought them for whatever. Some of them were the ladies' logbooks. Now, one of them came out of Rosecrans Field. Okay, and this lady was an instructor there for about 3 years. Some of the other log books that I was looking at, I was looking for somebody's famous name, MacArthur or whoever, Rickenbacker. Never did really found any, but I had a couple of those log books I was reading through, and all of a sudden got towards the like the last page of their logs on several log books, and it was around August 1945, whatever, and all of a sudden there's nothing. Anybody know the answer? The war's over. The war's over. People went home. No more need. Now, airlines used these link trainers up until the middle to late 60s. Then computers start coming in. The link trainer that I have, and going down through it and looking in, I got acquainted with some different people across the country who had a little knowledge on this. A fellow down in Florida by the name of Ron Handy. I've had some other simulators up there that he helped invent, work on. And when some stuff would go wrong, this old Pacer Mark IV is one of them, I'd send that down to him. When I bought this link trainer, I was on the phone with him on another matter, and I said, oh, by the way, I bought a link trainer. You didn't. I did. He says, can you get me the serial number on it? I said, not only can I get you the serial number on it, but it's the Army contract number. It's all on one plaque deal. He says, give me an hour, I'll call you back. He called back, and he said, I have some information for you, but before this, and I've talked to this guy for 10 years, okay. He says, we've never met, but I consider us friends, right? I says, yeah. He said, I can't let the conversation go any further unless, I can't live with myself unless I ask you a question. Well, he says, I don't know what you paid for it, but I'll double your money. I said, well, I'm not really sure, I really want to sell. He said, okay, let me tell you what you got there. By serial number and so on, that particular link trainer was built on my birthday. October the 20th, 1943. It was number 4 of 10 units that went to Hill Field in Ogden, Utah. On that. I traced some history back. They had it until 1959, and then it went to Sedalia, Missouri, to the Civil Air Patrol. I flew down there, talked to some people who remember it. They said things started going wrong with it. Nobody knew how to work on it. They either gave it away or sold it to this individual. So there's some history on the one that I have there. Had a fella on eBay left a message on my recorder, and quite sadly it got erased. But he said, congratulations on finding a link trainer. Congratulations on getting it going. Congratulations on what you're doing with it. But more so, congratulations on preserving the working knowledge of it that didn't fade into history. Yeah. So we've had instructor pilots, corporate pilots, airline pilots, military pilots. We've had a lot of different pilots come in and fly this thing. And one of the comments is that they've said, we fly modern simulators, modern ones. This link trainer flies more real than these modern simulators. How come? The reason is that they're on shocks, electronic shocks, and hydraulics rather. This is on airbags. You've got the pillow cushioning effect of the air rather than hydraulics. You can tell that much difference in it. There's a couple little things that I'd like to share with you that I know we're going to run out of time here. Because it wasn't that long ago. Had a young group of Cub Scouts through there, 6 years old. And I put them up in the link trainer, and I don't care if they're 60 years old. There's a little sequence that I go through. One of it is that when you step up into the link trainer, you're stepping into the 1940s. Those instruments will become religious. Okay. They get done, and I say, well, you all did pretty good, but there's one thing that you did not do while you were flying that link trainer. And of course, whether you're 60 years old or whatever, they're like, well, what was that? I said, you didn't look out the window once. Yeah, that's what the trainer's all about. You've got nothing but the instrument to go on. Well, this young 6-year-old over there, I said, okay, there's one thing that nobody did. Anybody know what that is? And this young man raised his hand. I couldn't figure out what in the world he's saying. He said, I know. What's that? And he says, we didn't fasten our seatbelt. You are right. We still learn from kids. Yeah. Any questions on the link trainer? Sir?
Are there any in foreign countries preserved, do you know of?
Actually, yes, in England. There's a fellow over in England that found a couple of them, and he's kind of at a loss of kind of getting some of them together. What I noticed was the desk was with the trainer. At the end of the war, those became workbenches and maybe office desks or whatever, so they got separated out. Who knows how many went to the dump? Who knows how many? Right now, from the internet, I think there's about 25 to 35 link trainers that are around the country guys are working on or in museums. Smithsonian has one, Curtis Wright Museum has one. I've seen the one in Curtis Wright. Actually wanted to tell them a little bit about it, but they wouldn't let me near it. They weren't interested, whatever. But they said they run, but I doubt it. They may fire up, but it's just let a car sit for 40 years and go up and see if it runs. You know, there's just certain things about it that needs maintenance. They're just like it. Every instrument in that link trainer is the same as instruments in the airplane. Exactly. That's it. Sir?
Apologize about the ignorance of the question, but were the women that used the trainer, were they considered part of the WASP organization? Or did the WASP use the trainer as they brought up the women pilots to fly?
They were not part of the WASP as far as I know. Some of the identification and things about they were not. Completely different. Now this lady that I talked to that came out from California, she actually got to meet Ed Link. He took her to dinner in New York and was trying to get her to do some training for the airlines. And this was after the war on that. But they were not affiliated with the WASP. They're completely different.
Would the WASP have trained on those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. One of the things that the guys did like about, and especially down in the southern states, they had to be in air conditioning. And that was a plus because you got to be in air conditioning on the thing there. Any other questions?
Is yours set up at the airport?
No, it's actually in my, I got a plant, I still own the building, it's downtown Leavenworth, across from the Firestone store. It used to be an old car dealership building way back in the 40s. A guy saw the end of the war coming, knew people needed cars, and put in a Studebaker car dealership. I left the front of it, because I never really used the front for the manufacturing part of it. I left it up front, put the link trainer up there, it's under lights at night and so on, so people get to see it. What had happened, anybody remember a company called Marlowe White, still in existence today? Sure, military uniforms, they've been there 100 years. So we had a lot of military pilots walking by my window. They would stop and we all learned again from one another. One of the Navy pilots there made a comment. He said, I never ever thought I'd get to sit in a link trainer, let alone fly one. When I get back to my apartment, I'm going to put in my logbook I flew the link trainer. Yes, you can do that. Okay. The government out there that got a hold of me from Atlanta, they said they wanted me to let people fly it. They said, but we have to have a regulation. It's going to be tough to come up with one. I couldn't believe I was talking to the FAA. They said, if we can't find a regulation, we'll write one. People need to fly it. But what it amounted to was, they said that the government associates simulator with computer. And there's nowhere in this is a computerized, not at all. So what we are allowed to do is put in their logbook, ground training device. That's legal. Can't add time. Nobody wants to add the time. They want to experience the vertigo, the disorientation. That's what you need. That's what we really need to, but people get to experience that. Other questions? Well, thank you for allowing me to come down and speak to you fine people about this. And feel free to come up to Leavenworth FBO, get a hold of me if you want to come fly it, make arrangements. Evenings doesn't bother me a bit. Bring your kids along because we learn from them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. You aren't done yet. We would like to give you a token of our appreciation and for your service, not only here today, but in the military and as a vet. And we'd like to present you with one of our challenge coins in the traditional manner. At least I'm told it is in the traditional manner.
Oh, all right. Just learned something again.
Thank you very much. You know, in kind of closing here, I want to pass something on to you that I learned at, of all places, a trade show in Nashville, Tennessee. Flew down there in the Mooney. Trade show was over like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, summertime, still had daylight left, right? Got a rental car, driving around, see the sights, so on. Now, we men never get lost, right? Okay, we may not know where we're at for just right now, but we're not lost, okay? I was turning around in a dilapidated, scheduled for demolition old motel. Here was a sign that was equal condition, and there was enough letters in the words to make it out, and I wrote it down. It said, being talented is knowing how. Being professional is your ability to judge. Now think about that for a minute. There's a lot of talented people out there. They know their jobs and they do their jobs well. But the professional has to make decisions. Where in flying does that apply? We have to make decisions. Whether there's a go, no go, turning on a heading, finding out what instruments don't work, you have to make decisions. The person who's in trouble is the one who doesn't make decisions. So make good decisions.
Thank you again, Dean.